So let's transition into the next question, which we'll talk about. Okay, which we'll talk about Governor Gendlin with the history of legislative independence, at least the legislature's independence in Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
Louisiana, for decades, maybe a century, has been known as a state with a strong governor type of government, yet all the metrics and the institutional laws tell us that Louisiana's governor isn't any more powerful than any other governor in the state, but for decades, than any other governor in the country. But for decades, governors have run roughshod over the Louisiana legislature. Mm-hmm. Prior to 2016, in as much as appointing legislative leaders or having a hand in appointing Senate presidents and speakers of the House. Can you tell me how important you think that it is for democracy in Louisiana that the legislature be independent of the strong hand of a governor?
I think it's important for a multitude of reasons. You know, when I took civics in high school, at Holden High School, which is about 5 miles up the road from here, one of the first things I learned was you learn about the branches of government. You learned about the judicial branch, you learned about the legislative branch, you learn about the executive branch, and you learn the basic concept of these three branches of government are really there for checks and balances. And so I think that's always stayed with me. And I think it's true. I think as simple as it sounds, it's very true. When I got elected to the legislature in 2011, Governor Jindal was in his second term. He just got elected to his second term. And it was a Republican-controlled executive office in the governor's office. It was a Republican-controlled House, and it was a Republican-controlled Senate. And so, it was something that, as a Republican, that I got, a good feel for, or a thought, really, when I got there. Well, Republicans are really going to, we're going to call the shots here. And that really wasn't the way it was. It was really the governor was calling the shots. And so whether it be a Republican agenda or an agenda that he thought was best. And so, roughshod, I don't know about that term. I'll tell you that, that when I got elected, my first term from 2011 to 2015 is vastly different from my second. And the biggest difference is that my first term, the governor had much more, for lack of a term, power over legislators that I really didn't like. I had a lot of freshman legislators that came in with me that had either a university, state-funded university in their district, or a state-funded hospital, or a state-funded prison. And these things tend to be huge economic engines for their geographic area, for their legislative districts. And so when votes came down, such as the education reform, that was very important to Governor Jindal when I first got elected. In fact, it was the number one item when I got the first day I got there. He made no secret that he expected Republicans to side with him on that. And it was an issue that I just couldn't do. I was one of 7 Republicans that didn't agree with the governor, and I just couldn't do it. He called me up, he asked me, he tried to persuade me, as well as the speaker at the time. And I was honest with him, as I thought I should be, and just told him I could not vote for something I didn't believe in. And they pretty much left me alone. However, there were colleagues of mine who I believe had the same feeling that I did about the issue, who wanted to vote the way I did about the issue, but they couldn't because they had a state hospital, or they had a state prison, or they had a state university in their district, and they didn't want any negative effects to come from it. And so, I learned that lesson really, really fast when I got there. And again, I've always been well blessed in my life, and I think my district, me being able to be as autonomous as I am, or at that time was because I didn't have those issues in my district. And, like I said, a state-funded economic engine that could have hurt mass numbers of people in my district. So I was able to be autonomous. Not everyone had that luxury as I did.